Welcome. Thanks for tuning in.
Zanna,
Miranda.
here we are again.
Yes.
And today we talk about CX is a means to an end, not a goal in itself.
Very important message that needs to get out there.
I think so. So, as always, let's start with why this podcast.
Yes. So my reason for coming up with topics tends to be just me working with companies and then, sort of responding to actual topics, right? And actual struggles. And sometimes also, when I'm recording podcasts with other people. So we tend to feel, right, that CX, the challenge with CX right now is that we need to prove business impact. Well, let me rephrase. There's a lot of proof that CX has business impact, but a lot of CX teams are struggling to get there. And the risk there is that, if you can't prove your business value, then also I think that there's a good reason why the company's saying, maybe we should dismantle this CX team. And there's a lot of, tools and methodologies that you can use. So there's enough material out there. We just need to, get more CX teams to be aware that, they need to step out of the CX tunnel vision and to make sure that, hey, CX is indeed not a goal in itself. It should always facilitate business outcomes, and it can, right? So I think the mission for today is also to give you examples that it really doesn't matter which business outcome your company is striving towards. I can connect CX to all of them without being very creative in my accounting.
All right, then let's start with that. Let's dive a little bit deeper in some business outcomes and see how you can connect the two. Cost reduction or revenue increase.
Yeah, so
maybe that's a nice one to start with.
yes. So we have roughly, let's say, 5 business outcomes, but if you have a different outcome and you're wondering, send an email and I'm happy to take up the challenge and see how we can connect CX as well. But of course, the most obvious one, right, is cost reduction and revenue increase. I think revenue increase is even more logical. So let me start with the cost reduction side. So when the economy is slowing down, right now, again, more companies are struggling. So sort of the automatic response is, okay, but we need to reduce costs. So we don't have room for CX. Well, I think also here, CX and cost reduction can be a beautiful marriage. Because a lot of times there's a lot of friction for customers, or they are calling a lot because the website is not functioning, or something else in the process/journey is not working. That's one side, right? So the analyzing the journey, analyzing all the context of customers are really good sources to find unnecessary costs. A few years ago in an insurance company in the Netherlands, we reduced the cost of the call center by 25%, which was around, I think, 2.5 million euros.
That's huge, right?
That's huge, right? In 2 years' time, while we increase the satisfaction of customers, right? So I've always been willing to prove, hey, yes, you can reduce costs as long as you continuously analyze all the friction and the cost reduction from the perspective of the customer. Then there's so much win-win. I think that's an important one, but also maybe a less obvious one is you can also use the employee journey as a tool to figure out, hey, but where are the inefficiencies for employees? So if now, I don't know, I have to follow a procedure, and I need to check in with 3 different departments, I'm just making it up, and we can make that easier, or of course the standard, IT is not facilitating optimally. If you can fix that, then you can choose, right? It can either be cost reduction because you need less employees, or you create room for them to have more time to spend on value-adding activities. Right? So on the cost reduction side, yes, CX is definitely also a super relevant tool to use, but it's not really top of mind, definitely not from the organization. But also I think that not enough CX teams are focusing also on how can we, be more efficient while enhancing the experience of customers and employees.
Yeah, nice one. All right. And when we talk about revenue increase,
Yeah, so for revenue increase, I would say maybe that's the more obvious one. So, of course, McKinsey, Bain, Deloitte, right? Everybody has already proven by now, a Forrester as well. Yes, there's money to be made. There's a lot of money to be made. I think the crucial point here is that it's from a certain threshold, right? So a lot of companies are between a 7 and an 8 when it comes to satisfaction, or between, like 0 and 30 in NPS, and they don't yet see the financial impact. That's because from an 8 or more in satisfaction, that's where you really get an exponential increase of loyalty, doing more business, um, being a customer for longer. So that's what a financial impact is. And we've done the same, right? So we've proven also with clients that we work with, hey, if we do a smart statistical analysis between satisfaction of customers and, let's say, 8 financial KPIs, there was a really clear cause and effect. With another organization, we figured out by using our driver analysis technique, because of course it's easy to say from an 8 or more you start seeing the financial impact. But then the question is, how do I get to that 8 or more? Right? That's again a link to our driver analysis technique. And then we could create an Excel sheet. So we had figured out the drivers of a specific journey. We knew how much churn we could reduce. So by then calculating, hey, this is the impact of the driver on satisfaction, impacting this percent of customers, reducing that percent of churn. And then you had just a super Excel sheet where you could see, hey, by increasing this driver from, I don't know, 4.1 to 4.3, it's 300K more in revenue.
yeah, cool. And when I'm already on this 8 plus, it's also really valuable to see how I can get to the 9 plus, right?
It's also, so you just reminded me of another thing. So yes, it's also very valuable to go to the 9 plus, because then the relationship increases even more. But also apart from the cause and effect analysis that we did, we also did a statistical analysis to compare indeed locations of stores that had an 8 plus versus stores that had an 8 minus. And we checked to see if there was a significant, right, statistically significant difference. And for me, the most interesting thing, so yes, there was a statistically significant difference. And for me, the interesting thing, it had to do with things like revenue growth and GP growth. So that was once the reason why I thought, okay, so again, CX is not a goal in itself, but it accelerates, accelerate an experience. It accelerates your business results, right? So yes, there are many other ways to have a successful business, but CX is definitely a relevant accelerator.
Yeah. All right, so that's for cost reduction and revenue increase.
Yes.
Let's go to improvement and experimentation.
Yeah, so I think a lot of CX teams get stuck in the analysis side, right? Qualitative research, and I think that's not only qualitative, by the way, but also touch point measurements. So it is quantitative, but it's not speaking the language of the organization. So you have a lot of research, but you don't know, okay, from all the topics that we discovered, which one is the fastest way to enhance business results? Or the team is sort of getting stuck in, okay, so we figured out maybe that personal attention matters. Let's do more research to figure out, okay, but what do customers mean with personal attention? Right? So they keep analyzing, and they struggle to get to execution mode. So there are two things I think that can help, right? One is that doing the right research, right? So using driver analysis techniques with smart statistics give you super clear, okay, enhancing the sense of attention in this journey will get us 5 times faster to an A plus than if we fix the ease of doing things online. Could be different, but right, I'm just giving an example. So that gives you focus. You don't want to improve everything, you want to improve the things that have the biggest impact. Because your colleagues in all the different departments, they are super busy with a gazillion other priorities. So you need to do the work to help convince them why it's a good use of their time, right? Why they should prioritize that. So that's on the improvement side. I also feel that too many CX teams feel that, and I don't think it's just CX teams, that's just more a generic assumption, that all the improvements lie on the digital side. And then they sort of feel, oh, but it's like it takes a year before there's some space on the backlog of IT. For reference, right, all the improvements that we've done when we're working with companies, zero needed an IT improvement or time from IT. But also don't overestimate the role of IT, especially also the link to experimentation. And we really like tiny habits. And tiny habits tend to be connected to behaviors. And so when you improve, you can either improve the process, the journey, I know, a better app, better letter, better process, different steps, or you can enhance behaviors. And for both, I think more organizations need to be designed in such a way that I can start trying things, right? That I have a short, I don't know, like 3-month cycle where I can try with tiny habits. Hey, this works, learn, and then continue. So it's both for improving, help the business understand where they can have the biggest effect, and for experimentation, make it small, try things, learn, and don't get stuck in analysis just because maybe you feel a bit scared that once you start improving, you might improve the wrong thing, right? That's where learning is a very important element of your journey as a CX team.
Yeah, for sure. And also, when you talk about experimentation and improving a letter, you can do the A/B test, right? So also there, make it really simple and
Yeah.
just give it a try.
I just said also recently there was an organization that had, let's say, stores, physical locations. So I also said, okay, just make the letter, go downstairs, ask, 3 customers who are waiting, hey, which of these 2 do you prefer? Yeah, so don't make it too complicated for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next one, number 3, customer-centric culture.
It's also when, right, so these 5 reasons that we're mentioning are reasons, and it could be a strategy of the organization, right? I want to enhance revenue, I want to reduce costs. That's pretty generic. On the government side, it's more cost reduction, right? That's not a revenue driver. Everybody wants to improve and experiment. More and more companies want to create this customer-centric culture. And that's super abstract, right? So what does that mean? Or even what perspective does the CEO have? And is it the same than the perspective that the CHRO has? Is it just making sure that we have a CX team check in the box, we're mapping a few journeys? Or do we want to have it integrated in everything we're doing, in leadership, in onboarding, in our decision making? So I think also here, CX, when done right, is really a strong tool to make this customer-centered culture really tangible. The driver analysis is one step. Okay, where should we start to improve? Mapping journeys, and not just then mapping journeys as such, but okay, again here, which journeys have the biggest business impact? How many customers go through each journey? Where do we get the most calls? Where do we get the most complaints? Also here, right, the tiny habits, okay, culture is expressed in behaviors. So what does it mean for me as a call center agent? What does it mean for me as a team leader to create this customer-centric culture? Are we already maybe on the right track? Do we need to throw everything out, right? There's also this tendency, our employees need to be more customer-centric. 9 out of 10 times when you do an assessment, it's not so much the employees. It's more, let's say, the different leadership layers that are steering pretty strongly on, let's say, purely operational metrics and not so much on customer-centric behaviors. So also there, find a balance, and the different tools in CX can really help you make it tangible. What do we mean with this customer-centric culture, and how do we get there?
Yeah. All right. Number 4, sense of purpose. Also an interesting one.
Exactly. So when we talk about CX transformation, I've referenced a few times, right, that I distinguish between operational CX and, let's say, CX transformation. And for me, the 3 pillars underlying successful CX transformation are customers, employees, and purpose. So I think the good news when it comes to purpose, I also talked about this in my podcast with Dan Cable. We both felt a bit like the crazy ones, right? Talking about the fluffy thing called purpose. And even he shared, right, 10 years ago, he was even sort of laughed at, by C-level purpose. Let's talk about money. But this is now changing, right? So now more and more companies are thinking about purpose, and new generations are asking for more sense of purpose, and not just window dressing. Yes, we're also reducing our carbon footprint, right? But really, why? What's the value that we are adding to the world? And I think also here, that doesn't mean that you, need to save everyone, right? Or it has to be like super non-financially driven. I think each sector, right, whether you're in telco, whether you're in HR, I think when you really step back, you can always find a purposeful why and the difference that you want to make with your business, right? So it's in the end, of course, if a business is not generating profit, then you should stop, right? So for me, it's not about not making a profit, but I think the beautiful combo is when you combine the three, you will accelerate because everybody's really in their strength and you're adding maximum value. So what we see when it comes to purpose is that from all the driver analysis that we've done across all those countries, all those different sectors, the number one driver almost always, I would say in 99.9% of the cases, is this human aspect. So both B2C customers, both B2B customers, they are telling you, hey, the fastest way to create more business impact is by giving personal attention, understanding my culture, be there for me when I need you, right? The human factor. Treat me with respect, also in a government setting, reduce my stress level, right? When it comes, for example, to welfare. Why is that connected to purpose? Because, and this is also the reason why I always say, if you want to do CX transformation, yes, employee experience is crucial, but start with the CX side. Because once you figure out and you can show with hard statistics, hey, this human thing is the fastest way, 9 out of 10 times, that human aspect was the reason why employees decided to join your company, right? I want to make a difference to people looking for a job. I want to make a difference to people that are using internet so they can connect with family across the world, something like that. And then you have a very smooth, again, tangible way, because also purpose, right, can be super abstract, can be a bit daunting, right? So what does it even mean? And what does it mean also in my personal life? But I think by starting from the customer, you start layering, right? So the first thing is, hey, I feel I can make an impact on others, on customers. Okay, that's sort of already a more superficial but relevant layer of purpose. And then you go deeper, and one organization that we work with, like Zain in the Middle East, they also facilitated workshops where employees were invited to think about their own personal sense of purpose. Well, I think that's amazing, right? In the end, if you can connect your personal sense of purpose to your work, well, then I think it's acceleration to the max.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think also when we do the CX drivers, but also when we do the driver analysis for employees, also their top, let's say 3 drivers tends to be something around meaningful impact, knowing what matters to customers, right? So on both sides, we've proven 3 sides actually. I'm now thinking also about this, the culture driver survey that we created, where we have a survey where we ask about purpose, employees, and customers. And also there you saw that the purpose side of the 3 had the biggest impact on the emotional engagement of employees.
Yeah.
So also here you can make purpose really tangible and just start working with it.
Yeah. Nice. Already go to the last one for this podcast, innovation.
Yeah, so innovation, also from previous podcasts, maybe you know that I'm pretty critical when it comes to the use of service design. And so let's say our expertise is not so much in innovation. We are more about transforming the culture and I would say improving. But for me, innovation, so this is the 5th, let's say, business topic from your company. If your company and your leaders are really strong feeling about innovation, then you can use the hook for CX as well. And for me, this is really where service design adds a lot of value. So then you can really use qualitative research to figure out, okay, but what's the context of customers in their home using it, or their context, mapping their context to really come up with completely new products or new services. And also you can use the drivers that we discover. And so sometimes we would get the question, okay, but these drivers are measuring the current situation. But what if we want to design a completely new journey, for example? Then our advice is to say, hey, but those drivers that you discovered, you can use them as design principles for your new journey. So then it's still valid that customers, for example, need personal attention or they need you to be there for them. But how you give personal attention, how you are there for me, you can completely redesign that journey. Right, so with those two elements, you can also use CX as if your board is really strong on innovation, sell your value as a CX team on how you can facilitate innovation.
Yeah. Okay, I think these were some really interesting, nice hooks. What goes wrong when CX becomes the goal? So we aren't able to make these hooks.
Yeah, so I think if you recognize, for example, that you're measuring a lot, but there's not a lot of action taken, or you're measuring a lot, but your colleagues are asking, hey, but can we also maybe deep dive on analysis XYZ? When you feel like your CX team is sort of a staff, and yes, some people like the insights, but then they continue with, let's say, their day-to-day job. I think these are all signs that you have not yet proven the business value. And so sometimes CX teams, I don't know, choose a bit of, let's say, the victim approach, right? The leaders are not seeing the value, the managers are not seeing the value. For me, I tend to take more of a hard approach by saying, of course, right, if nobody is completely a believer in customer centricity, then okay, right, it's time to find a different organization. But everything else, let's say if the CEO is really in support of putting the customer in the heart of the organization, then I think it's really up to you, right, up to us as the CX gang to translate that into, okay, but how do we make sure that all different departments, all the people in the organization understand their role, understand the value, right? So then I think you can no longer say and complain, hey, they don't see the value. Then I think you really need to reflect and understand, what am I doing wrong for them to not see how CX is helping them with their business goals.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes, okay, we've mapped 10 journeys, but that was it, right? We just did a lot of research. We're measuring touch points. We have a live dashboard. Nobody's looking into that dashboard. We see trend info, but we don't have any concrete improvements that we can explain on why we increased or decreased, right? So then it's just a sort of a standalone function that's not really impacting the organization.
Yeah.
And the biggest risk there then is, right, that the rest of the organization will say, what the beep beep are these CX guys and girls doing all day, right? So they are really wondering, because there's also a lot of terminology in CX, right? Journey mapping, personas, that's already not speaking their language. But also if they don't see how you can help them achieve their business goals, then I think rightfully so, right? And I think rightfully so, the added value of CX is being questioned. So you need to step up, prove your business value.
All right. So if I'm listening or watching this podcast and I'm inspired, how do I start?
Yeah, so I was, last 2 weeks, I was talking to a CX colleague, and for me, I think also like 6 months ago, I was challenging them. So what often happens is that the CX person, the CX team is sort of proactively bringing data, right? Hey, this is what we're all measuring. Look, we have a beautiful dashboard, which is kind of ironic because it's very inside out, right? So from a CX perspective, we are selling our product. While we are preaching, hey, as an organization, you should always look from the customer, right, outside in. What's your customer as a CX team? Your customer are all your departments. You need to understand their needs and then see how you can, help them address those needs. So I always say, forget about your wish list, your shopping list from CX. Forget about your journey mapping. Start by asking the question, okay, dear manager, dear team leader, whoever you're talking to, what are your top 3 business issues that keep you awake, right? That's really now top of mind. It can be, I don't know, I have a super high workload. It can be there's a new IT system coming and I'm completely freaking out how we do this implementation. Yes, it could be something with customers, but often it's not directly, right? Directly related to I want to enhance the experience. No, maybe I want to enhance loyalty or I want to create a new product. So for me, why am I saying this? Because of 2 reasons. One is then they really feel heard. You're understanding them, you're listening to them. But also here, just like the 5 business focus areas we described, I yet have to discover a business challenge that I cannot somehow figure out how the tools that we have at our disposal are not adding value to fix that problem or to figure out the puzzle.
Yeah.
Right? So for me here, it should be figure out what are, maybe define your internal customer. Just ask them, what are your top 3 challenges? And then you have sort of your toolkit, right? Only then you have your toolkit to figure out, okay, if this is your challenge, maybe we can map the journey of the customer and the employee to figure out how we can reduce workload.
Yeah.
Okay, if this is your challenge, then maybe we need to do driver analysis to figure out, okay, you're researching a lot, but what has the biggest impact? If this is your challenge, maybe we need to check which KPIs are we steering, and are all the layers of leadership consistent in, if we want to have more focus on customer, but are constantly pushing on efficiency, maybe we need to talk about that and facilitate something there. And so I have this long list of, let's say, elements in the toolkit, and I think that's really how CX and EX the same, right? You can find the drivers of EX. We not only did tiny habits for customers, we also did tiny habits to reduce workload. And it worked beautifully as well, right? We did that together with Allianz. So for me, I think the key for you as a CX team is to switch your perspective, right? Practice what you preach, start from the outside in. So start talking to your internal customer, figure out their needs, and then together build an approach. And then you should be the advisor, because your internal customer, they don't know what's the value of a journey map or what's a driver analysis, right? To them, it's super abstract. So then you, with your expertise, can say, okay, if this is your challenge, then I think we should start with mapping the employee journey, asking them a few questions, I don't know, right? Do tiny habits. But that should be really your internal consultant role. If you do that, then it's immediately sort of a co-creation. You're facilitating, you're proving your added value to them because you're helping them solve their urgent issues. And then you start, being a serious sparring partner that next time they have a challenge, hey, this person from CX, that was super valuable. Let's see if we can work together again. And that's how, again, that pool strategy is being created.
Yeah. Great. I think we covered it all, right?
Yeah, I was just checking indeed. I think one other relevant tool that maybe we did not mention that often is, I was just checking the list of tools we had, and I mentioned everything except the leadership assessment. And what I mean by that, because of course there are leadership programs, and leadership is being assessed on, being a good leader, and what does that mean, right? On a competency level. What I notice is that it's really helpful to also do an assessment to understand that. So if the company wants to be more customer-centric, that you do sort of an assessment. An assessment is like super, maybe sounds super heavy, but maybe it's like 4 or 5 questions on a regular basis, where you ask the different levels of leadership, team leader, manager, director, C-level, what do you think about customer centricity? Do you feel facilitated to focus on the customer? Do you even know how you can focus more on your customer with your team? Do you know why we are doing this? Is something preventing you from focusing more on customers? And to really assess on, let's say, the leadership actions, almost the leadership context, the organization system, on how well is it suited to actually be more customer centric. Because if you start pushing from CEO level, and I'm at a management level, and I'm steered really hard on financial KPIs, then for me it's understandably super complex to, okay, but how do I then work in the customer if somebody's saying it but I'm not being asked, or it's not integrated in my steering, or I don't know, right? I don't know what conversation I can have with my team. And I think for me personally, what I underestimated is, because if you've been listening for a while, you know that, you just put a quarter in me and I have a gazillion ideas or, ideas or actions or habits. But most leaders, what I've experienced so far is almost no leader is against. If they are against, it's more that they're struggling so much with different topics that they just have no brain space for customer stuff. But most of them say, yes, of course, I want to support it, but how? right?
Yeah.
Zanna, can you give me some ideas on what I can actually do? And that's where you can step in and give a beautiful menu. Don't make it a very long list, right? But let them choose on some activities that they can actually do. And then if you track that, let's say once a quarter, right, you have this 4 or 5 questions. Then you can also see, hey, indeed, is the sense of, being in control of them facilitating customer centricity, is that increasing? Follow up with them, maybe just have one-on-ones. What are you struggling with? And just really consciously design a way to actively involve leadership in this transformation as well.
Yeah. And also here, make it really specific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, good one. Good addition. And I think is a lot more in this toolkit, right?
yeah, yeah, I think so
We
too.
discussed a lot, and there's a lot more.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Then we covered it all for today.
I think so.
All right. Thank you for listening, and Zanna, see you next
All right,
time.
see you next time. Ciao.